Welcome to Where Talent Meets Opportunity, a business show that provides our viewers with business strategies, tips, and information for starting, running, maintaining, and growing any small business. We have a great show planned for you today.
And welcome to Where Talent Meets Opportunity. Once again, I'm your show host, Jay McElroy, and we have a special guest today with us. Her name is Cathy Santos. She's the president and CEO of Women Veterans Business Solutions. And I'm telling you right now, if you are a woman veteran or know someone who's a woman veteran, you're going to want to listen closely to this show because this young lady is everywhere, it seems like all the time. She travels between Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, all across the country she goes. But she has quite a role here in the Washington metropolitan area. And we're so excited that we're having her on our show today. And welcome, Ms. Cathy.
Thank you, Jay, so much for having me once again.
Yes. Now, you know we're going to start out with who you are, Cathy. So tell us a little bit about you and your background.
So I'm born and raised in North Carolina, having migrated to Philadelphia in my younger years, going through my high school education, initially through college there. And from there, I went to the military, and I've transitioned through several states and throughout the country during that time in my life. At present, I'm working several different areas of the country to promote the awareness for women and veterans in the entrepreneurial community and for connecting them to many of the resources and opportunities that they are not being accessed to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that I show up face-to-face on many occasions to have the conversation so that they can understand the importance of getting into the pipeline for accessing these resources.
Okay. Now, just recently, we participated with you at a conference that was unbelievable called ProBiz, and it was held in Silver Spring. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved there and just kind of do some highlights on what you were able to accomplish with the Veterans Center?
Okay, as a part of the business community, there is a network of individuals or professionals in every area of this business, whether they're finance or accountants, but that's just like a plethora of different fields that are covered in this network. And through one of my accounting professionals, Carol Robinson, Fast Tax Services, she does taxes for businesses and individuals. She connected me through Russell Price, actually, who does marketing for businesses in the DMV, who through that network, I was introduced to Mr. Malcolm Veach, who at the time was facilitating the ProBiz conference, and we communicated, and it was agreed that I would facilitate for the Women Veterans Symposium. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that it was a successful symposium, and I thank you so much for your participation as moderator. Mm-hmm. I think your professionalism brought the clear focus for what my attempt was in setting an agenda in this area for what is precipitated, in my opinion, the Congressional Black Caucus panel discussion on entrepreneurship as it connects to legislation and policy and some of the other intersectionalities for how we must move forward on this agenda.
Okay. Now, let me reel back just a little bit because we're going to come into that Black Caucus thing then. You really have that going. But I did want to give a little recognition also to LaTanya Barton of Kingdom Wares. And I had the esteemed opportunity to be one of the participants there with her as you gave her award. So can you just share that a little bit, because it was really an emotional time, I think, for everyone, and to be able to be supported by your organization is just unbelievable.
LaTanya Barton is the business manager to a service-disabled veteran-owned business, Kingdom Ware Technologies, that took a very courageous stand against some of the challenges, if you will. When I talk about intersectionalities, we're talking about gender, old policy, missing policy, just a lot of things that preclude the enforcement for federal contracting opportunities. The Kingdom Ware Technologies, in their 5 or whatever the length of time it took them to get to the victory with the Supreme Court ruling that gave favor to many organizations and companies across the country, was not giving the, in my opinion, the supporting, undergirding recognition. I believe that she deserved to have the kind of front line recognition that identifies not only her as a female, a woman veteran, but the wife to a service-disabled veteran-owned business owner who did not stop at the no.
Okay.
Okay, and that extra effort proved to be so beneficial that the language that it is written is enforceable. It recognizes a veteran-first opportunity for federal contracted opportunities, and I do believe that to recognize her on that platform, it demonstrates to the veterans community at large where we are in this fight, the accomplishments, and using her as an impetus, if you will, for change. And I think that we could go across the board where there's some other obstacles and challenges that we deal with, but that's a major, major accomplishment and victory that we all can benefit from.
Right.
And she has been very humbled and generous in allowing us as participants. I was an amicee in that last lawsuit among several other veteran service-owned businesses and organizations that supported the language, and throughout the process allow their organizations and companies, whether it's American Legion, Vets Force, Vets Group, to support that platform by bringing the awareness to the issue of the challenge in the rule of two. And also that this particular organization would get more strength and moving that agenda forward with the numbers behind it. And through Philadelphia, Dwayne Morris, the law firm in which recruited me to support help, and I just went on a campaign to solicit my network of women veteran business owners to get behind this in a supportive agenda, particularly using the VWISE platform, where there has been several hundred women veteran entrepreneurs, which was my focus, even though some of the other outreach were to other veteran-owned businesses. But my focus was to get the women veteran entrepreneurs to understand their power behind this enforceable Supreme Court ruling. And I think that's where my thoughts were in presenting her with this National Community Service Award, which was a part of the President Obama Community Service Award program, where I've probably given out over 50 of those awards. But certainly she was well deserving of that.
Yeah, she was very happy. And she did make it clear she wasn't the veteran. And and her husband was a service-disabled veteran, which you already mentioned. So what I would like to just reiterate, I mean, I mentioned as we started, women veterans, but you actually had someone who was the spouse of a veteran. So you don't discriminate, is what I'm trying to say.
The role of the spouse or a significant other in a service-disabled veteran-owned business is required. The service-disabled veteran-owned business classification would suggest that there's a 51% ownership of the business, where that 51% of the business is operated by the veteran. However, that 49% actually would be the undergird, the operating managers, if you will. It kind of gives strength, because we all recognize the service-disabled veteran-owned business as having some limited, restricted ability in that recognition. And I think it would be remiss not to say that help would be needed to help to own and to actually function as a fully operational business. So the government has given that classification to us, but it allows that spouse to get also the recognition and the support in that business as a qualifying shareholder, a stakeholder, and a presence there. Yes, so I think that's a realistic identification that we should all recognize when we see ourselves not being aware of that service-disabled veteran-owned classification. It's not restricting, it's actually opportunity. You see what I'm saying? So one of the other encouraging things, I just want to just stay right there with the service-disabled veteran-owned business classification, is that there is a certain stigma attached to disabled veterans. And I think the reality for what the government has done in giving that business opportunity to that veteran, it allows for whatever that capability is within that veteran to consider a business opportunity, that whether you're at home-based business, whatever idea you may be able to conceptualize as a business entrepreneurial opportunity, there are no restrictions. So I think the government has given us favor in that regard. You know, and I'm very, very excited about what I have been able to do as a service-disabled veteran-owned business owner, and there are many service-disabled veteran-owned business owners who are doing extremely good work with their understanding and the limitations, but also to encompass and embrace that which the government allows by having our family members and other significants to work within that, that realm and that framework that they've given us to operate as business owners.
Okay. Now, I know that what she did was a phenomenal thing.
Yes.
But are there any boundaries that, is it just for the VA? Is it for anybody? As far as an agency?
The language is written to include terms like veterans first, preference, and federal contracting opportunities in the rule of two, which means that there has to be two competing companies to give the veterans first a preference when they're competing for these opportunities. However, it does have a language that says small businesses, which would be non-specific to veterans-owned business.
Okay.
But for my conversation, I advocate for veteran-owned business.
Okay.
So the language and the way it is written, it's a very broad. Okay, but in order for me to bring the attention that it needs for the community that I'm trying to promote and to identify with it, I continue to promote the veterans first component.
Okay.
Okay, but you would have to interpret the language based on your need.
Okay.
And I think from that, with any other legislative or certain Supreme Court ruling with such a very broad and I think it has a very broad and inviting, if you will, which means it welcomes the business climate to adhere and to utilize that Supreme Court ruling. However, I think it does have an openness as opposed to the restrictions. It's more open to include all businesses as to any restricted environments for business.
Okay. So now let me just ask personally, have you been able to take any part in the legislation yourself?
Absolutely.
Meaning, okay. I'll let you go
ahead.
Go right ahead, because I know you get excited. So do I. Got two excited people. I'm trying to hold my seat here for a second.
The legislative component is very important. The Supreme Court ruling actually comes after some of the legislative contributions that I made. I was invited to contribute to the United States Small Business Committee on a Women Veterans Forum in 2014, where I met Maria Contreras-Sweet. She succeeded Maria Johns, who was executive director of the SBA, who had done tremendous work. Maria Contreras-Sweet brought a different agenda to the platform. However, we have a different SBA director, but however, the legislative language, I believe, needs to be more specific to women veterans. So it is my intent through my present work to identify a socioeconomic classification for veteran-owned businesses for a women veteran-owned business classification.
Okay.
I think it would be unique to identify in comparison to the woman-owned small business or the service-disabled veteran-owned business, where the woman veteran is not necessarily recognized as a business owner.
Right. So I think they would end up having three. So that would be woman-owned business, economically disadvantaged woman-owned business, and then you're saying service-disabled, or just saying woman-owned veteran business?
I'm saying specifically my approach would be to identify with women veteran-owned business.
Okay, veteran-owned.
For set-asides and sole source opportunities where these particular businesses will be directed toward this particular population of business owners.
Okay.
My work
I'm going to wait for that one. I won't be able to take advantage because I'm not a veteran. But
my work is cut out for me in that, however, as a woman veteran business owner, I come under the auspices of women-owned small business that are not necessarily women veteran business owners.
Right.
So it's okay to identify with the woman-owned small business, but when you have the women veterans owned business opportunities. There was a contract actually provided, a grant provided actually by the SBA for women veteran entrepreneurs, and it was provided to an other than a woman veteran owned business to kind of facilitate this program, which I challenged. I challenged it through the SBA, and I'm challenged it's ongoing through legislation, because a woman veteran owned business, in my understanding, in my belief, should actually be identified by one which has gone through that experience. Can better recognize some of the distinctions that may qualify a woman veteran owned business as to one who does not.
Right. Well, we're going to come back to that. I tell you, this is getting exciting. If you're a woman-owned veteran, you're going to want to definitely hook up with Miss Cathy Santos. So her contact information is going to be at the end of the show, but we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back.
We will be right back with our next guest on Where Talent Meets Opportunity, a business show that is dedicated to providing small businesses quality business strategies and resources pertaining to all aspects of small business services, support services, and training.
And welcome back to Where Talent Meets Opportunity. Once again, I'm your show host, Jay McElroy. We're back with Cathy Santos. If you guys missed the first half of the show, you're going to absolutely have to find it again and listen to it, because she is providing some valuable information for woman-owned veterans, as well as those that have support staff when it comes to either the veteran service disabled or the, what do you call it?
Woman-owned small business.
Woman-owned small business. I'm just losing it today. All right, Miss Cathy, let's get back. I hear you are getting ready to do something with the Black Caucus.
Yeah, so the Congressional Black Caucus Veterans Brain Trust is facilitated by Ron Armstead, who's done phenomenal work over the past 28 years. But what I'm learning is that the information, which is the most impactful resource for veteran-owned businesses, particularly those women of color and men of color, is not far-reaching enough.
Okay.
So I'm in Mr. Armstead's ear as much as I'm in your ear or others' ears who have such great platforms. And thank you again for just allowing me to share this. But Mr. Armstead, on this year, has created a Women Veterans Forum.
Okay.
Where several impactful advocates are coming together to talk about some of the work that we've been doing across the country.
Okay.
And it's far-reaching. As the education, it is geographically, demographically, we're all present in this particular forum. However, I'm going to divert.
Okay.
I'm going to divert and host a conversation with some legislators, do a Capitol Hill campaign on some of the disparities where opportunity are being missed.
Okay.
As I witness and research and do a lot of my own investigation as a reporter and a media personality or professional, I tend to want to see what they say be realized in what they do.
Right.
And that's evidenced through the successes of the women veterans or whatever community that this legislation is supporting.
Okay.
So March 21st of 2017 of this year, the Deborah Garnett Sampson Women Veterans Act, was introduced by Senator Tester, which has a lot of language. It has a lot of stipulations for supporting women veterans. However, when I've communicated through that office, I need to see that that legislation actually connects to something real for the veterans that I know are not aware.
Okay.
So I tend to try to make the connection through media or
Okay.
other different venues of communicating what's available to them.
Okay. All right.
The Veterans Brain Trust will have conversations from Iraq veterans up to World War II veterans. We're all going to be compiling much of our information through our own experiences and as advocates, veteran business owners and so forth. My particular conversation will be particularly to have legislation introduced to have it written into some law on how we can support some missing platforms that are needed to realize some of these opportunities.
Okay.
Some of the disparities I talked about specifically in with the United States Senate Committee and ongoing conversations where in certain urban communities or certain among certain demographics, there is a lack of outreach to these resources.
Okay. Now, when you say outreach, what type of outreach resources are you looking at?
Well, I can't be specific about what outreach, but the Department of Veterans Affairs, I think, would be one of the major platforms I would look to for information resources and opportunities.
Okay.
However, that particular centralized location, it may not be accessible to all veterans.
Right.
And it's not realized when I talk to the veterans, they're not aware. Even locally to my communities in Philadelphia where I've done so much work, they are just not aware that the SBA actually has such a concentrated information base as with OSABU, the Office of Small Business Development Utilization, which we have partnered called the Think Tank Thursdays, where we're going to be actually putting webinars together or face-to-face conversation with veterans who has an interest. And we're going to be talking with Chanel Bankston Carter, who was the director there, to communicate the specifics webinars where they can actually learn federal contracting opportunities, how to qualify, where these resources are,
Right.
where are the counselors and the assistance platforms that actually help you match these opportunities where you can actually benefit.
Okay.
It's more than just seeing 2 or 3 people together, you understand, who have successfully met the 8A requirement
Right.
or the other hub zone requirements, but to see among the 380,000 women veterans who are registered as business owners, we would like to see a larger percentage of them benefit from these opportunities.
Okay.
So the legislative agenda that I'm setting will bring this data, this research in a report where we can say, can we get at least some hearings? Can we get this in some legislative language for identifying where this information and resources are missing so that it is an enforceable process by which it could be fundable for outreach opportunities, whether it is media,
Right.
whatever government relations platforms where we can bring this into the smaller arteries and communities across the country.
Okay. You got your hands full at this point. You have to, Cathy, that is a humongous task.
It has been my role in this government relations process that if someone is not at the table, if it's not documented, it tends not to take the kind of get the kind of momentum. So my role has been, because I possess some of the institutional memory,
Right.
as does yourself. You have much work since for many, many years, pre-stimulus, on work that you have done, if you don't mind me saying, that we can identify as women veteran business owners, that you have compiled as opposed to government, but you're talking about an independent private resource where we can have endless opportunities with a fundable pilot program with what you've already done, Ms. McElroy. I would like to present that to this legislative body to demonstrate such a powerful outreach that Comcast, through the Business Center here in Bowie, can become a model throughout the country. If you're going to do it, let's do it with an expectation that it is going to reach the people that need to be reached. It will have the impact that it needs to have, and we can benefit through the successes of these businesses that we see desire,
Right.
and are so deserving of this type of a thing that we're doing here. So the legislative agenda through the Congressional Black Caucus will award me that, and I would like to continue to keep the conversation for what I know to be is great work through the Business Center. In my conversation, it will be a wonderful pilot to demonstrate what already has happened. Can you imagine, and just me ask you this question, that it be modeled in every state?
Absolutely.
You know, the SBA is very centralized, and with every administration, it makes it uncertain as to the future. And the changes that come with different administrations, different elections, it's a transition that sometimes leaves gaps in services,
Right.
changes in services, it modifies with leadership. However, when we have the constant independent resources such as the Business Center, which I value. The Philadelphia also has a very valuable Comcast to Go TV. I think Comcast utilizes this in many places throughout the country. But if we could begin to utilize some of these independent private resources, I think that we can make the realistic impact on connecting government, where I think the centralized resource base actually could get the kind of arms, if you will,
Right.
to do
Right.
the work that it itself alone cannot do.
Okay. Now, Cathy, how many women veterans do you actually have an opportunity to work with in a year? I know it's a lot, but how many? Because the impact of what you're doing right now is just tremendous. I mean, the event you just did was just phenomenal. And I think the networking that occurred even after, just the exchange that I heard in the room, it was just rejuvenated the people that were there at that conference.
I can say, Jay, that I take on a role which is multifaceted. Again, the institutional memory that exists in my 20 years of advocating on this issue, beginning with the military sexual trauma. I was a business owner, and all the other stuff came along.
Right.
So rather than take that on as a distraction, you stay focused on what your desires are. If it's entrepreneurship, let that be, which was mine. So when I'm speaking to one veteran, I'm not speaking to two veterans, I'm speaking to the veterans community at large.
Right.
So because I know that there's over 1.2 million veterans in this country, as a facilitator for the Department of Labor Homeless Women Veterans Listening Sessions in 2009, when we were just really taught to generate the conversation for the women veterans community transitioning with a focus on military sexual trauma. I facilitated for Region 3.
Okay.
And in that, I was able to learn that these women who had ideas of entrepreneurship were kind of stagnated because of other issues,
Right.
whether it was the military sexual trauma, whether it was homelessness, it was a lot of things. So when I'm talking to one veterans about this issue, I'm always talking to the rest, because I believe that documentation, marketing, how we communicate is very important, which was why these conversations were recorded.
Okay.
Because their testimony is what encourages and urges those women veterans who may be somehow stagnant in their situations to move forward,
Right.
to think beyond the homelessness situations, think beyond the housing situation. Let us connect you with some valuable resources where your situation can benefit from the bigger platforms where all of your issues can be resolved. If you were a sustaining business owner, you could satisfy your family needs. You could create the environment to satisfy your $417,000 home ownership certificate
Right.
as to the transitioning environments that are controlled by the government.
Okay.
So my idea is to empower the veteran. Empower the veteran.
Okay.
Allow them these opportunities by allowing them to see the accesses, the access opportunities through. I'm gonna tell you, Laura is one of my model, if you will, successes.
You said Lori?
Lori, excuse me, Lori.
Okay. Oh yeah,
she's
you got to get her name right.
Yes. So stability management,
right,
who
Lori.
has overcome, I mean, tremendous challenges. There's Ginger Miller even. She's very well known. Okay, who's a woman veteran business owner. Kelly Chevalier out of Washington, D.C., very, very successful women veterans business owners.
Right.
But these women veterans, some of them have gone through tremendous challenges transitioning military service, tremendous challenges. We have to continue to spotlight the successes.
Right, right.
So that the women veteran can say, oh, wow, I can do that. And that's what, when you say how many, all of them. Because what my message is, I hope it's infectious enough that people will see my inspiration, my accomplishments in being a victim of sexual assault and all the other things that came with that. You overcome that, but you keep going.
Right.
And you reach for the stars because it is endless out there. So I say the number is endless. I want to say to all of the women veterans out there, the empowerment, the educational opportunities for where you can go exist. Let's reach for the stars.
And we got to do a wrap. So we thank Cathy for coming on today. Her contact information is going to be as follows on the prompter. So stay tuned for that contact information. And I do so thank you, Cathy, for coming in today.
Thank you again, Jay. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Until our next time, guys, where talent meets opportunity.
Thank you for joining us on Where Talent Meets Opportunity. We look forward to taking your business to the next level and increasing your business bottom line in days, not months or even years. Until our next show.